Hello, welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Smash the like button. If you love me, subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. A very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. And I'm so happy to be with you here today. On today's show, we talk about Superman Legacy, and we're talking about the rumours, the report from the Hollywood Reporter, that the Authority will play a part in James Gunn's Superman movie. And afterwards, we're going to talk about Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever. We're going to talk about the fabled, rumoured Schumacher cut, because Kevin Smith is saying he has got a copy and he's seen the movie, which is very, very exciting because I do want to see the director's cut of Joel Schumacher's movie. So we will get there a little bit later on. But first of all, the Hollywood Reporter are reporting, because that's what they're supposed to do, that in Superman Legacy, the Authority will play a part in that movie. Now, I want you to understand something about Superman Legacy. Superman Legacy is going to be a huge Superman movie. But Superman Legacy isn't just the Superman movie, it's a DC movie. This movie sets up James Gunn's brand new DC universe, and I mean that. You're going to see a lot of DC characters in this movie. This is kind of a pilot episode, if you like, of James Gunn's brand new DC universe. So he's going to introduce the kind of worlds and characters you can expect to see. Now, I don't know if we're going to see his version of Atlantis and, Star City and things like that, but we're going to see a lot. We're going to see a lot in this movie. This is not just a Superman movie. Of course, Superman will be the focus. I don't think he's going to sideline Superman in his own movie or anything like this. But you're going to see cameos, but I think you're going to see beyond cameos. I don't think there'll be cheap cameos either. He's introducing his universe and these iconic DC characters, and I think that's a really good thing. Now, some people will be very upset. They're going to call it overstuffed and, the usual shit. These are the things they put at Batman Returns door. Oh, it's overstuffed because you've got 3 or 4 extra characters in the movie. Batman Returns is one of the great Batman movies as far as I'm concerned, and it never felt overstuffed to me. James Gunn's going to use this movie to introduce his universe, and that's what he's going to do. Of course, there will be the debate that should this be, a pure Superman movie with no other characters in it. Those days have gone. If you want to see that, you're going to have to re-watch Superman the movie, Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4, Superman Returns, and Man of Steel. Batman versus Superman, even though Batman's in that movie and there's a few cameos, right? The days of a pure Superman movie are gone. The days of a pure, basically titling a movie after a character doesn't guarantee you on a focus on just said character. And James Gunn comes from a studio and a universe, Marvel, that didn't focus on one character. They did in the first Iron Man movie, they focus on Tony Stark. But already in Iron Man 2, we're meeting Nick Fury and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. So the cameos and the appearances and the setups started in Iron Man 2. It was already there. In the Incredible Hulk movie starring Ed Norton, we get a Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark cameo in the post-credit scene. So that was their intention from the very beginning, to set up a universe. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, people loved that element of the MCU. I think that element has been somewhat mishandled over on the old DCEU, although I think that Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne being in that post-credit scene with Amanda Waller was really cool. In fact, the best kind of cameo things that I saw done in the DCEU were in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, even though he says it's not his movie, right? And it's not, he's telling the truth. But we saw Batman against Deadshot, which was really, really cool, by the way. The Bruce Wayne cameo with Waller, which I just mentioned. The Flash cameo is excellent. So if you ever want to watch a DC movie that does cameos and references really good, it is that first Suicide Squad movie. Actually, the appearances were perfection, even if you didn't like that movie. I actually liked the theatrical cut. I may even love the theatrical cut of Suicide Squad. Don't tell critics and don't tell the cool kids over on Twitter. I do like that movie. And in terms of cameos and setting up the DCEU, I think that first Suicide Squad movie actually did a really, really good job. And it's a shame, you know, Snyder's vision was destabilized after that. Well, it was destabilized even in that movie, wasn't it, when they cut poor David Ayer's work to pieces. But Superman Legacy are going to attempt to do the same, but I don't believe they're just pointless cameos. I think everything will mean something, but you are going to see this world. You know, Superman Legacy will be a lot about world building. I think it's important that we can see what type of universe James Gunn is building here. And that's why you're going to see the Authority in Superman Legacy, because the Authority are a very big puzzle piece in terms of James Gunn's new DC universe. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know all about the Authority. They're a group of super-powered heroes. By the way, if you have information on the Authority, now I have read information. Before you say go and do your research, I have done my research before, and we have spoken about the Authority extensively on my channel before you start on me. But I'm not going to tell you the same shit again. They're basically an authoritarian superhero team. It seems to me that potentially they could be pre-Justice League. I think they do things in a very harsh, authoritarian way. They don't always go by the rules, and I think they're a very brutal, ruthless team. I think that's what they are. I'm not 100% sure of that. So, are they the villains of Superman Legacy? Well, that's interesting because it depends how much of a part the Authority play in this movie. I suspect that James will want to set up the Authority properly in the Authority movie. To repeat, we are getting an Authority movie. Now, for the people saying, well, I've never heard of the Authority, big deal, the Authority is the villains of Superman Legacy. Well, I can tell you that people weren't happy to hear that General Zod would yet again be in another Superman movie when he was announced for Man of Steel. He'd been in Superman the movie, like in the opening bit. He was in Superman 2. He was in a full season of Smallville. Clark fought him in season 5 in the Fortress. He didn't fight him, but literally he's fighting Brainiac as the disembodied Zod was coming through the portal, if you remember. So we've had a lot of General Zod in DC live action, and people were complaining about him being used yet again in Man of Steel. But it turned out that we got a very different Zod, a brilliant version of Zod in Man of Steel, and I don't think anyone was complaining about that element of the movie at the very least. So I have no issue in James introducing a group that I know nothing about. In fact, I like that. And I like the fact that James Gunn keeps his secrets, as we discussed yesterday. As I said, all the leaks for casting, for me, I think they're fake leaks. I think they're supposed to distract us. So when we hear who's playing Clark and Lois, we're going to be very, very surprised. But I like the fact that I've never heard of the Authority. I like the fact that I'm going to be surprised by them because I don't know who they are. I don't necessarily think they'll be the main villain, but they could be the main villain. But it would be a bit odd to make them have, a lot of screen time in this movie. I think they'll be introduced in this movie. I think you may read Daily Planet articles about them. I think Lois Lane could be investigating them and researching them and hearing about everything that they're doing in Metropolis and all over the DC universe and their brutal methods. And I think that may be the part that Lois plays in this movie, and I think that will be really cool to take Lois Lane back to being an investigative reporter. And by researching and being obsessed about the authority, I think that's where the mention of the authority could be in this movie. But because they're getting their own movie, you don't want to overly set them up. You don't, if you can kind of find a way to introduce them via Superman Legacy, then you will. So I don't believe that James Gunn is making the authority the villains of Superman Legacy. But as you know, I'm a human being. I have opinions. Sometimes those opinions are right, and sometimes those opinions are wrong. It is my belief at this stage, about doing some research about the movie and talking to people, that James is not using the authority as the main villains, but they will be part of the movie, and I think they're going to be the Lois Lane part of the movie, how they use her as this investigative journalist, and I like that idea. I love it in comics or TV shows or movies when Lois Lane is obsessed and she's investigating, because that's who Lois Lane is. She's passionate about exposing corruption and bad things going on in the world because she cares about the world as much as Superman does. They just go about, you know, trying to make the world a better place in different ways, and that's why they fit so well together as two people, as friends, as a couple, as lovers. That's why that relationship really works. So I think that's the levels of kind of the authority being in the movie. Whether or not there are going to be a few newspaper clippings or we actually see this team doing some shit, I don't know. So if the authority, as the Hollywood Reporter is saying, are going to be in this movie, and let's just say they're not going to be the main villain of this movie, who do you think is going to be the villain in Superman Legacy? I want comments going at a breakneck speed right now, letting me know what villain you want, or villains, whatever, in Superman Legacy. So I want to go back to every kind of at least Superman movies, where what villains they've used in Superman movies. So let's have a look. In Superman the movie, they used Lex Luthor. In Superman 2, they used Zod and Ursa and Non and Lex Luthor again. In Superman 3, they made up this villain played by Robert Vaughn, Ross Webster. In Superman 4, Lex was back with Nuclear Man, which he wasn't from the comics. Superman Returns brought us back Lex Luthor yet again. By now, people were getting fed up of Lex Luthor, although we loved him in Smallville because he was a bit more of an intriguing character in Smallville. You could really delve into that characterization. Man of Steel brought back General Zod. Batman vs Superman brought back Lex Luthor. We finally got our first live action Doomsday, which I thought was really cool in BVS. And, I suppose we can use the Snyder Cut as a kind of Superman movie. So you get Steppenwolf and Darkseid. Again, that's really cool because we've never seen them in live action either. I think there's so many epic villains in Superman's comic book lore, and I think a lot of people are mistaken when they say, well, Batman's got the coolest villains, but Superman's only got Lex Luthor. That's not actually true. But there's a certain galactic bounty hunter whose name escapes me today, the one that Jason Momoa is rumoured in playing. He's kind of a Superman villain. I would call him a Superman anti-hero, and I'm sure that's how James Gunn will use him in DC Universe. So that's very exciting, that character is going to be used in DC Universe, because James has already hinted heavily about that character, and he hasn't denied that he's going to be involved. So I expect that character, played by Jason Momoa, to be in Superman Legacy as well. So this is the kind of stuff that keeps me open-minded and positive about Superman Legacy. And James Gunn has done good CBMs, good to great CBMs as far as I'm concerned. He ain't perfect. I can nitpick some of his movies if you want me to, but that's not what I'm here to do today. And it just basically means I'm a Superman fan who's open-minded, who wants to see a great Superman movie. So if we get this galactic bounty hunter played by Jason Momoa, Lobo! So glad I remembered his name. Normally I would wait till I finished the video to remember his name and I'd be going, no! So Lobo. Jason Momoa is reportedly playing Lobo. Now Lobo, I would say, is more of an anti-hero rather than a villain. I think, yes, he will be involved in Superman Legacy, and that really excites me. And I think that's going to be exciting for Jason Momoa as well. Whether he continues to play Aquaman at the same time, I have my doubts. We will see about that. I suppose it depends how the movie's going to perform. But as I predicted when we were getting Black Adam, I said these movies are not going to perform that well. People said I was wrong, and I was right. But it's an interesting facet of what James Gunn's doing, that he needs to set up an entire universe. He doesn't need to do everything in Superman Legacy. He just needs to world build. He just needs to introduce a few characters. So whether or not, the Authority are the main villains of the movie, which I doubt, because how can you have them from being the main villains to setting them up in their own movie? Doesn't really make sense. But I think they're definitely going to be mentioned as some kind of oncoming authoritarian threat. And I think the element is Lois Lane investigating them. And that's my theory on that one. So I'm excited to see the introduction of the Authority in Superman Legacy. Now, in terms of other villains, the most popular villain that people always say to me they would like to see in a Superman movie is Brainiac. We were going to see Brainiac in Superman Returns 2, the sequel to Superman Returns. It was going to be done in a very exciting way. And ultimately, they were going to start off kind of on a good footing with Superman. And Superman was going to show him around Earth, but then Brainiac would question Superman on why hasn't he conquered this world? And that's when they start to disagree. Later on in the movie, Brainiac disguises himself as Jason, Superman's son, and Superman kills his own son by accident. So a very compelling ending that Bryan Singer was calling a Wrath of Khan movie. And this was being developed during the Writers Guild of America strike back in 2007, 2008. So that movie got lost because of that strike, but also Warner Brothers weren't exactly overly confident if they wanted to give Bryan Singer's Superman Returns a sequel, because the box office for that movie wasn't great. But look, Bryan Singer is problematic, and that's using the term loosely. But he's a very good filmmaker. He made two of the best CBMs in X-Men and X2 ever. So he's very good at what he did. Now, Superman Returns, he made a mixed movie, and, I don't really understand what happened there. But yeah, so Brainiac is a character that we've all want to see. I think they did him justice in the Krypton TV show. I think the design was fantastic, and I'd love to see, a faithful source material Brainiac in Superman Legacy. Will it happen? I think it's unlikely. I think we've seen a lot of, alien threats recently. The end of the world, here comes the alien. And I think it's something that Chris Hemsworth was talking about, why people didn't really bother watching Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because it's another end of the world threat and people are getting bored of that. That's why I've been talking about Metallo for many, many years. But Brainiac is a bit more than an alien threat. He's a collector. He's a very intriguing character. You could do it in an interesting way. In fact, you could do a really cool Superman TV series with Brainiac as he bottles the Earth and everyone's trapped on Earth. That would be an interesting continuing TV show in a kind of Lost TV series kind of style. That's something I would love to write the shit out of, and I think it would be very, very interesting. But in terms of Brainiac, he is a villain people have wanted to see for a very, very long time. He's a villain I would love to see him in James Gunn's Superman Legacy. I have my doubts, but who knows? As I say, Metallo is a very interesting domestic villain. As if they go down the John Corbin, average guy who becomes Metallo, and, make them a complicated, two-dimensional villain, that could be very interesting as well. As I say, we've already spoken about Lobo, who I see more of as an anti-hero more than a villain, but who knows, they may just make him a villain. And Lobo's a very interesting character, a very fun character, a very swashbuckling character, a character, if done well, and I think Jason Momoa is a great idea for the role, and he does love the character as well, and I think that will be an excellent thing, and I think that Jason really wants to do this, and I hope that Jason does get to play Lobo. But whoever gets to play Lobo, it's clear that Lobo will be involved in James Gunn's new DC universe, and that really excites me. So let's move on. Before we talk about Batman Forever and the whole Schumacher cut and all of that, I want to talk about the Flash movie and its reportedly terrible CGI. Do you remember last year when they delayed these movies by a year? And remember when the media was saying they were all delayed because they wanted to improve the VFX? What happened in that year to the Flash movie? Did they get Roy Orbison from the grave and Stevie Wonder to do the fucking CGI for the Flash movie? What happened? But do you remember what I said? I countered those claims that they were delaying those movies because they wanted to improve the CGI. Do you remember when I told you it was bullshit? I was coming in every day telling you it was bullshit. We had people like Boba Talk believing the crap, and all these kind of high-profile YouTubers say, yeah, it's definitely because of the VFX. Well, you go and watch the Flash movie, see the VFX and tell me what they were doing to it for the past year. So it looks like, considering the CGI is very ropey in the Flash movie, that they weren't spending the past year improving the VFX, because if they call that VFX improved, then Houston, we have a problem. So they were lying. Those movies were not delayed to improve the VFX. There was another reason. And I think it had to do with the Zaslav situation. I don't think he came in exactly at the time when they delayed those movies. But clearly Zaslav was running things from outside a little bit as well. I think they were trying to make a decision on these movies because they knew they were utterly problematic. And that's what I said at the time. So, right again, Zod. So, Kevin Smith claims that he's seen the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever. Now, I'm quite a big fan of Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever. I don't really know what happened with Batman and Robin. I can still enjoy that movie. I think the elements that kind of were a shame is that they lost Val Kilmer. I think if they kept Val Kilmer for that movie, Val would have been a lot more stricter on the tone of that movie. Not that it wasn't a very kind of bright, campy movie, Batman Forever, but in terms of the Schumacher cut, it is supposed to have darker elements. The Schumacher cut's supposed to be a darker movie, and the fans have been obsessed with wanting to see it. Now, the people that have been pushing and researching the Schumacher cut have posted a few clips online from certain deleted scenes that they think or hope will be in the movie. I've seen one as well. And so I would absolutely love to see this movie. I think that this would be a great kind of piece of respect and legacy for Joel Schumacher, because Joel Schumacher, make no mistake, was a damn good director. I think, did he direct Falling Down? He definitely directed Phone Booth, one of my favourite movies starring Colin Farrell and Kiefer Sutherland. A brilliant movie, but this guy directed a lot of great movies. So don't be urinating on the name of Joel Schumacher. So, as I said, personally, I really like Batman Forever. Is it Batman 89? Is it Batman Returns? No, it is not. It's basically set in the same universe with a different actor playing Bruce Wayne and Batman. And that's exactly what Batman and Robin is as well. It's really, really strange to think that those two movies are supposed to be connected to the same universe as what Tim Burton did. But you see, Tim Burton wanted to come back and do Batman 3, but they didn't sell enough toys. Parents complained about Batman Returns were being too a bit too brutal and bloody, you know, when Penguin bites off the guy's nose and things like that. The usual complaints we got with the Snyderverse as well. And exactly the same thing that happened to Zack happened to Tim Burton. And that's a big shame, because I think that Tim Burton continuing to make Batman movies, because that's what he wanted to do, just like Dick Donner wanted to do after Superman the movie. And as with Dick Donner's, you know, Superman verse that we never saw, we can only think about what might have been. And I think that Tim Burton would have continued to make his great, dreamy, you know, kind of fairy tale Batman movies. And, you know, I love the first two movies and they were great. And it's just a shame that Warner Brothers went for rather trying to sell toys and making lots of money rather than making great movies. At least they've been consistent, although Warner Brothers were a lot more for the auteur back in the day, because bringing in Tim Burton to make a Batman movie was a big gamble. But he did bring in Jack Nicholson. Jack did love working with Tim. Michael had already worked with Tim already, of course, and that's why Michael Keaton was brought in to play Batman. And Michael Keaton was not a popular choice. I remember, I'm 50, I'm old enough to remember what happened when he was cast as Batman, but it turned out okay. And in around a week's time, he reprises his role to big fanfare as the Batman and Bruce Wayne character in the Flash movie. And I think that's what everyone's excited about seeing, rather than two Ezra Millers. I think people would have preferred two Michael Keatons or two Sasha Calles rather than two Ezra Millers. One Ezra Miller is bad enough. And so it was a big shame what happened to Tim Burton, because Michael Keaton would have came back for the third movie and a fourth movie under Tim Burton and maybe even a fifth movie. But Joel Schumacher came in, and as I say, Joel was a very, very nice guy. He was a very talented director, and actually he was a very, very big Batman fan. He was as big a fan of Batman than Tim Burton or, you know, someone like Matt Reeves. But Joel Schumacher's fandom really came from the 1960s series. And what he wanted to do with those Batman movies is kind of give us that tone and that campiness of the 1960s series. Now, personally, I didn't mind that, but they should have taken it away from the Burton universe, because I'm sure Burton is still having nightmares about that campiness in his franchise. But I did, look, at the very least, I did enjoy Batman and Robin, and I actually think Batman Forever is a bona fide movie. And you look, I like what they did with the villains. You've got Two-Face. Now, he's not the dark version of Two-Face that we see in The Dark Knight, but I think Tommy Lee Jones did a good job. You know, yes, he cackles a lot, but it's okay. It works for that campy movie. And a lot of people don't like Jim Carrey's The Riddler, Edward Nygma. I think it's fucking amazing. I love the bright green costumes. I love the way Jim plays him. Jim is one of the most talented men in Hollywood, even today. And what a tragedy that he's retired from acting. I really hope he comes back to do Sonic 3, because he's back on the vibe. He's back being Jim Carrey again. And Jim's gone through so many bad things in his life since the peak of his career. It's what fucking Hollywood does to people, right? But yes, I support the Release the Schumacher Cut movement. So if you're part of that movement and you want me to talk about anything about what you're trying to push on my channel, then, you know, send me a message and I absolutely will do that. Now, as you can see, I don't have a lot of subscribers, active subscribers as we call them. I don't get a lot of views, but if you want me to promote the Schumacher Cut, because I want to see it myself, I will support anything you're doing on this channel. Movies TV Mad is a supporter of Release the Schumacher Cut, as we were for the Release the Snyder Cut. The ultimate vision for a director is so important. And when that director is no longer with us and has no longer got that voice, and their voice was muted by Hollywood and they weren't allowed to release their actual vision for that movie, then we're here. The fans are here to fight for that man's legacy. As I say, Joel Schumacher was a very good man, a very nice man, kind man, gentleman, loved Batman, and I think he made 2 entertaining Batman movies. And it doesn't matter if you don't like them or you think they're bad. I'm not saying they're Shakespeare. I'm saying they were very, very entertaining. This has been Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. Smash the like button. If you love me, subscribe. Can you please have your say. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.